Hello, my name is Carlos Munoz, and today we'll be talking about sexual education in K through 12 by providing a very brief comparative analysis between the United States and Denmark. I will also be offering my recommended solutions for improving the state of sexual education in our country. I'll start off by doing a bit of a history lesson. Formal sex education could be considered an American invention that came about out of necessity. With the country now transformed through industrialization, urbanization at the turn of the century, folks were leaving their rural homes and moving into crowded urban centers, causing a rise in sexually transmitted infections. Couple this with a world war in which returning sailors and soldiers were bringing home STIs to their partners back home. Panic, panic over an epidemic of sexually transmitted infections prompted the federal government to sponsor sex ed efforts by promoting social hygiene, by distributing pamphlets, and eventually introducing sexual education in high schools across the country. From its very inception, though, sexual education curriculum has been a highly controversial and contested issue. Religious and conservative groups argued that such education prompted immorality and promiscuity, while sex ed supporters argued that its emphasis on purity and not on scientific evidence was doing our younger citizens a harmful disservice. To this day, sexual education curriculum continues to be a divisive subject that can wield incredible influence and power. Sexual education in K through 12 in America has essentially become a tale of two curriculums: abstinence only and comprehensive sexual education. Abstinence only, as the name implies, promotes abstaining from sex, often suggesting waiting until marriage as the best way to prevent pregnancy and STIs. Typically, there is no talk of contraception or condom use unless it is to bring up failure rates. This curriculum also lacks discussion on topics related to queer teens and teens who are already sexually active. This creates an issue where a large portion of adolescents are being excluded and are not receiving the tools and resources necessary for navigating their sex and sexuality. This causes many to turn to other sources for information like their peers, pornography, and the internet, which in itself can be very harmful. Comprehensive curriculum, on the other hand, still provides lessons on abstinence in an age-appropriate and medically accurate manner. But more importantly, it provides inclusive information on safe sex practices, healthy relationships, and communication. While most researchers and a majority of parents agree that comprehensive sex education is more effective, many adolescents across the country are still receiving abstinence-only instruction, if any instruction at all. This is due to the United States having no federal law concerning sexual health education. Instead, curriculum is determined via state-by-state legislation. Even then, several states also require guardian permission for receiving sexual health education, which means some guardians can completely opt their children out. And as you can see in the graphic, the state of United States sex education is all across the board, with only 29 states requiring sex education at all, and 5 of those requiring comprehensive sex education, and it was 16 states that provide abstinence-only sex education. So it is no surprise that a recent survey conducted by the Guttmacher Institute has reported that 4 out of 10 millennials state that the sex ed they received was not helpful. The CDC reported that 750,000 women ages 15 to 19 became pregnant, 80% of those being unintended. It should be noted, though, that teen pregnancy rates have steadily been declining, but there are still racial and geographic disparities within those rates. For example, Black and Hispanic teens are still twice as likely than white teens to get pregnant. It should be noted as well that teen mothers are less likely to graduate from high school, attend college, and are more likely to live in poverty. This causes the personal problem of pregnancy to become a social issue as it perpetuates racial, sex, and economic inequality. Currently, folks ages 15 to 25 contract about half of the 19 million STIs per year. This is despite making up about 1/4 of those declared sexually active. This equates to a stat of 1 in every 4 teens contracting a sexually transmitted disease or infection. Regarding the transmission of HIV, young folks ages 13 to 19 make up a stunning 1/3 of the estimated 50,000 new HIV infections per year. This adds up to an annual health cost for the US of around $18 billion. Denmark, on the other hand, does federally mandate sexual health to be taught in all of its primary and secondary schools, with no options for guardians to opt out of instruction.
Children as young as 4 years old begin to receive sexual health education. Children receive lessons on relationships, appropriate touching, and intimacy. The curriculum expands to include age-appropriate topics and concepts. For instance, 7-year-olds learn the proper names of different body parts, and 8-year-olds discuss gender stereotypes. By the time they are 11, Dutch students should be able to discuss reproduction, safer sex, and sexual abuse.
So as you can imagine, Dutch adolescent sexual health outcomes are much more positive than those experienced here in the United States. Teens in Denmark do not have sex at an earlier age than those in European countries, which is often an argument made against sexual education. Their argument being that if we teach kids about sex, it will encourage them to start doing it. This is not the case, and furthermore, Dutch teens are more likely to report having positive first sexual experiences. They also have the lowest rates of teen pregnancy in the world, as well as low rates of HIV and other STIs. Dutch teens are among the top users of the birth control pill, and 9 out of 10 use contraceptives the first time they have sexual intercourse. Condoms are even available in vending machines, and the birth control pill is free for anyone under the age of 21. The Dutch approach to sex education is highly effective, centering love, empowerment, and respect in sexuality education curriculum. Rather than fear, shame, and stigma, this makes for a healthier and happier society. The Netherlands offers an excellent lesson in the positive power of comprehensive sexual education. My structural solutions to improve sexual education in K-12 are first, to implement mandatory sexual education. I would also task school districts to implement policies that foster a supportive environment for sexual health education. So, for example, like providing sexual health resource centers on campus and providing teachers and administrators with training and counseling relating to the sexual health needs of their students. I would also recommend that sexual education curriculum that is implemented be comprehensive and one that guarantees the use of medically accurate, age-appropriate, and inclusive content.
To conclude, I would like to finish by reading the United Nations mission for comprehensive sexual education, which I think so well captures the value in quality sex education and the power it has for improving the lives of our adolescents and helping in reducing inequality and changing attitudes for generations to come. Comprehensive sexuality education enables young people to protect and advocate for their health, well-being, and dignity by providing them with a necessary toolkit of knowledge, attitude, and skills. It is a precondition for exercising full bodily autonomy, which requires not only the right to make choices about one's body, but also the information to make these choices in a meaningful way. And because these programs are based on human rights principles, they advance gender equality and the rights and empowerment of young people. So with that, I'd like to reiterate that sexual education is social justice. So I hope my presentation shined a light and maybe taught you something about sex ed in the United States. And with that, I thank you and have a good day.